Hey guys, it's the Aussie Gamer here, and in today's video I'm going to be showing my review of the Logitech G920 in 2022. So let's get straight into it. Now, the burning question I've put in the title, is it worth it? Now, I do think it is, but I personally wouldn't buy it for retail. I got mine used for around $150 USD, and that came with the optional shifter, which was a great deal. And if you do find it for around that price yourself, then I'd recommend buying it. But if you're paying the regular retail and then buying the optional shifter aside, I personally wouldn't get it. Now, this also goes for the G29 and the G923. They're both very similar, have slightly different features to each other, but overall, they're not too different. Another thing is, I probably wouldn't recommend it even if you do find one for a good deal, if you don't have any plans to use it. I know, for example, many people have gone and bought the wheel themselves, and then they've used it once or twice a year, and then sold it after. Now, if you do actually use it, then you're getting value out of it. But if you don't, then I just wouldn't get it. So what I'm going to do now is do a breakdown of each of the components, that being the steering wheel, the pedals, and the optional shifter. So here we have the wheel itself. Now we can see around here it is a leather wrap design onto an aluminium frame. We also have an aluminium alignment device up the top, which is nice as well. Very nice, high quality. There's also other things. For example, we have the pedal shifters as well. Now, these are quite high quality and a nice clicky feel to them. Now, something to note is that the G923 pedals actually have a slightly deeper tone to the clicking sound. It's not much, it doesn't feel much different, but there is a slight change. If we go to the back, or what is the front, we've got our ventilation holes right here. It looks quite sporty, but usually you don't see them because it's facing the opposite way to the wheel. On the bottom, we've got our ports for our cables. For example, over here, we've got our power, we've got also our pedals. Now, also here, you've got your port for your optional shifter if you do have it. Now, we've got our USB plug right here that we can take out. This is quite long and it should go straight into your PC, which is great. We've also got right here some grommets that we can put our plugs into if you need to cable manage, which it's really helpful. The next thing I'm covering is the mounting points. So for example, right here, we can see we've got about 30 millimeters of clearance between the wheel mounting point right here and this bottom part. So for most desks, you will have enough space. But there is one cool thing about this. You can take these blocks out right here. I'll just take one out right now. And we've got 50 millimeters of clearance instead of 30. The design itself hasn't really changed since I think the G25, this whole construction. It is plastic. It kind of feels like it could break, but it doesn't seem to. Going back to the front of the wheel, we've got our different buttons right here. For example, we've got our D-pad. Now, funnily enough, for some reason, the right on the D-pad feels way better than the left, and the up and down feel almost the same. It's probably not as good as an Xbox controller, but it's okay. We've also got our other function keys, like for example, the left bumper, the right bumper, our other menu items. We've got our Xbox Home right here, and our typical X, Y, A, and B. These feel okay to use. For example, these buttons right here, they feel a little bit flimsy. I kind of feel like they may break in the future. They haven't, but it's just not the highest quality. Now, diving into the motors this has, they are very reliable. They are robust. It gives a lot of force if you do want it. I turn it down quite a bit, but if you are strong, this will give you a good challenge. So that's my overview for the wheel itself. Now let's move on to the pedals. And here is the board itself. Now we can see we have got our accelerator, our brake, and our clutch. Now you would have been able to see that the brake takes a lot of force just to be able to get down. Now, some people have said that that's realistic. Yes, it is obviously realistic that you do want your brake to be stiff, but the biting point is way too early. So for example, if I push down really hard on this, I'm only getting to around 60 or 70% usage. Now, this is not realistic to an actual car. If you get to the floor, you should have full braking, but here, you don't. You can mod the board if you do want to. I'll be leaving a link in the description of a video that has done it effectively. It's basically removing a rubber bump stop from this pedal itself. It'll make it feel more like the clutch instead of the accelerator, for example. It means you'll be able to go down to 100% and you'll actually be able to stop your car. The construction of this board itself is okay. It's mostly made out of plastic. We've also got our aluminium pedals, which they feel obviously a little more quality because they aren't plastic. And what I'm going to do now is go to the bottom of the board to show the gripping points. So there is a lot of surface area right here that you can actually grip onto. Now, if you put this on a tile surface, there's going to be absolutely no grip. But if you put it on some thick carpet, then you will. Now, there's also a neat little function with this board as well, which helps grip on carpet, and that's this little retractable part right here. So if you flick this little function switch right here, it opens this. And what this means is it grips onto the carpet better than if it was in just by itself with these standard points. Now that we have looked at the board, let's go and look at the optional shifter. So here's the shifter. Now, this has quite a long cord, which is great. So if you need to feed it a long way around to get into the wheel input, then you shouldn't have an issue. I myself have never had a problem, and you probably won't too. The construction itself is mostly plastic. We can see we've got our shifter right here. It's plastic and clunky. It's not the highest quality, but you kind of get what you pay for, even though I wouldn't recommend this at retail. Now, if you want the shifter to feel better than its current form, I'd recommend a company called Gmod UK. Now, they make specific products for this shifter, so it means you have a much better experience when going through the gears. It's basically a little addition that goes above the shifter itself, and it helps click better into each gear you use. It's more of a gated style than this, which kind of just moves around everywhere and you can miss shifts. But with those additions, they work out great. If we turn around, we can see, also lots of cable, but we have our mounting points. And for example, right here, we've got a nice fat 50 millimeters of clearance to put onto your desk. So if your desk is really thick, you shouldn't have an issue. So that is the highlights of the shifter. Now, if you do put it onto your desk, you will feel it becomes a little bit more sturdy. But as I said, with some upgrades, it feels even better. Now that we have looked at an overview of the parts of the G920 and also the optional shifter, I'm going to go on to Forza Horizon 5 to show it in different scenarios with paddles and with the manual shifter. Alrighty guys, so here we are in game. Now first off, I'm going to be using the paddles instead of the manual shifter. That will be coming later. But this first car I want to use is the Lexus LFA. Now this also, in real life, has some nice aluminium paddles to use. And it's funny, because when you use these on the actual wheel, it kind of connects you to the car. So that's why I'm using it. Now I'm going to set off and talk about a few things which I do like about the wheel and not so much. So as I put in my breakdown, the wheel itself definitely does work well. But for me, I personally want to put down the force feedback because it is quite aggressive in stock form. Now, what I have done is a video on the correct settings for this wheel in FH5. So if you do want to see content on that, then I'll link it below. So the accelerator itself, as you can hear, it definitely does feel quite nice. It's got good feedback. The clutch itself, which I can't use right now, does feel good. And the brakes, well, their biting point is a bit too early. So for this next thing, I'm going to shut up and just drive this thing. This car sounds awesome, and especially when using the wheel, it is pretty immersive. So let's go for it. nope, that has not gone well, and I flipped over. Yeah, you can see, if you don't use the wheel a lot, you do make mistakes quite a bit, and for me, I haven't used this wheel in a few months. Now, I'd definitely not recommend drifting with this wheel in its current form. I'd recommend getting a hydraulic handbrake setup, because with the current stock form, you have to press the A button to drift, and when you're doing that trying to, for example, handle the car, it gets very complicated. No. Oh, damn it. Not enough steering angle. Yes, this thing definitely does sound nice. This Screaming V10, especially in this game, they have done the sound design well. I think in FH4, for example, they did actually redesign the sound, but it sounded a bit off, but here, it's pretty good. So that has been a little drive with the paddle shifters. I do like using them, especially if you're using, for example, like a supercar or something that doesn't actually have the manual option in real life, then it does work. Now what I'm going to do now is switch from this car with paddle shifters over to something that actually has a manual gearbox. So here we are in the manual car. The one I'm choosing today is a Chevy Nova. I really like this thing. I think it sounds great. Now I've also switched over to manual with clutch instead of manual so I can use the clutch. Now what I must say with the shifter itself in use is it does take a little bit of getting used to. You may miss a shift here and there. Now that's because of the way the shifter is designed. Now it is actually slightly better than the G27 shifter, but not by much. So what I'm going to do is take off, try and not stall it. Oh wow, I didn't. That was pretty good. So if you want to be more hands-on with the car you are driving that does have a manual option, then definitely go pick this up if you can. Now, as I said before, I would recommend trying to find it used, because if you do get it new, it is quite a pricey thing, and honestly, for what it's worth, I don't think it is at retail. Now, the reason I chose this one instead of like another V8 is because it's not too powerful, but it does go quite quickly. Now, if I was to choose something that had over 1,000 horsepower, it probably wouldn't be that enjoyable with the wheel, but this one's around 750, and it's a good sweet spot. I also really like the driving dynamics of this car. For some reason, when it's max upgraded, the turn-in is quite good. It's kind of heavy on the front axle, but with the race tyres, it kind of works out. Now, what is it like to use when you're commuting around town? Well, it actually depends on the car, because if it is really powerful, you may actually stall it a bit more, but if it's less powerful, it's going to be easier. So let's chuck it in fourth. You can see we're around 2,500 revs, pretty good. And if you just want to drive around the city, like realistically, for example, then it is pretty good. Now, even though we can technically use the A button to drift, I wouldn't even in manual with clutch. I'd be using the clutch to actually flick the car around. As you can see shortly, it does work better than using the A button. You can definitely have a lot of fun by using the clutch to drift, especially in something like this. It's just a pity that we don't get a separate handbrake we can use that's from Logitech. Okay, so we are at a little intersection here. Gonna flick it. Oh yeah, that got a bit squirrely. I should have had two hands on the wheel, but instead I just had one. Yeah, that can definitely be quite satisfying when you get it right. Now we are near one of the intersections of the highway where we can do a bit of drifting. Let's see if I can do it. I'm not sure if I can, but we'll give it a crack anyway. Banging off the rev limiter a little bit, but yeah, that was pretty nice. Let's see what happens when I go on an uphill. Oh, okay. I kind of ran out of power because obviously we've got the race tyres on and it just gripped down. Whoa, that was a bit too far, especially with the stock steering angle instead of going with drift suspension. That's a bit sketchy. Now what I'm going to do here is also shut up and just drive this thing so you can hear what it sounds like and see what it's like with the wheel. Jeez, what are you doing, mate? Wrong side. Oh, God. Jesus. Stupid drivatars. What are you doing? Oh, my God. Sure, you want to play games? All right. No, I'm losing. I'm only rear-wheel drive, and I can't do anything about it. These drivatars are so stupid. Oh, God, they're crashing into each other. Okay, yes, apart from the drivatars being absolute buffoons, it is fun to use the wheel. Style it out. Very nice. Yeah, I'm not exactly a good drifter, but any little power slides I can do. Now, you could also see there is a little issue right here. I'm using my manual on the left side. Now, you're probably going, why am I doing that? Well, the issue is I'm Australian, and that means I use it on the left side. And you can see I'm an American vehicle using it on the right side. Well, that is my drive with the Logitech G920 in two different vehicles, one with paddles and one with a manual shifter. Now, I'm going to give my final thoughts. Now, in summary, is this a good wheel to use? Yes, it's pretty good, but I wouldn't purchase it at retail price. So if you do find it used on a good deal, then I'll go and get it. There are also some other wheels that I could recommend that aren't the G920 or G29 or G923, and that's from Thrustmaster. They've got the T150 Pro, which is around the same price point as the G923. It doesn't come with a shifter, but you can also buy that optional. You've also got the T300RS, which is a pretty good alternative too. It's a slight higher price bracket, but you do get better quality. Now, saying that, if you do want to make it even better, I'd recommend the T3PA optional pedals. Now, these are better than the T300's standard pedal set, and they're probably better than what you get on the G920. Alrighty guys, well that is my review for the G920 in 2022. If you like this video, then make sure to subscribe to my channel. I'll be doing more reviews on other tech products in the future, so if you do want to see that, then make sure to stick around. I'll see you guys later, and peace.